So this is part 2 in the rhythm notation reading series that we're working through. If you have not seen part 1 and you're confused throughout this video, I recommend that you go back and watch part 1 first. We're picking up where we left off last time, so we talked about note values. I gave you some examples and some things to think about. So now today we're going to talk about rests, and we'll start by just taking a look at, let's say, okay, this is a quarter note, right? So for every note, we have a corresponding rest. So if this is a quarter note, we have a quarter rest, and the quarter rest looks like this. This is a quarter rest. Okay, so quarter rest. Next, we have eighth notes, and we have a corresponding rest for that. It's called an eighth rest. Eighth rest. It looks like a little bit of a 7 with like a squiggly. Next is the 16th rest. So the 16th rest is the same, but with two flags. Two little things here. This is a 16th rest, just like a 16th note, we have a 16th rest. Okay, then the bigger note values that we did not talk about last time would be a half rest, which is 2 beats, 2 beats. This is half rest, and a whole rest, which is 4 beats, or actually a whole rest is used in different time signatures, so it could be 4 or more or less. This is a bit confusing. This just means rest for the whole measure, basically. And that would be like a whole rest, so like 1 rest. 1 rest means like a whole measure rest. And basically, you can see we've talked about this is, note values are basically fractions, right? And you can see here, if I write it like this, quarter rest, eighth rest, 1/16th rest, these are all fractions. That's why when you get to a whole rest, it's one whole number, because it's one whole measure, like we talked about here. This is one measure, and we divide it into 4 parts. For example, if we're just playing quarter notes in the measure, right? So and then these are examples of a division. If we think about each measure as a pizza, and we subdivide the pizza, okay? So those are rests. Now let's look at real music notation, and I'll point some of these things out for you so that you can kind of start making connections on your own. So this is another just drum solo from the Charlie Wilcoxon snare drum book. I recommend this book. It's a very good book. But in this context, we are just using it to look at rhythm notation. So let's look for a quarter rest in the music. There's a quarter rest here, like right at the end here. Okay, that's a quarter rest right here. So quarter rest. Let's look for an eighth rest. So an eighth rest would be here, for example, in the first line here. That's an eighth rest. 16th rest. Let's see if we can find one here. I don't think there's a 16th rest in this piece. Let's look for a half rest. I can see one right here, half rest. Half rests and whole rests are sometimes hard to distinguish, but you're going to notice that this half rest, it's like a little block that sits on the 3rd line. And then a whole rest is the same little block, but it hangs off of the 3rd line, okay? So a half rest is on top of the 3rd line, so think half hat goes on top of your head, and a whole rest hangs on the bottom of the 3rd line, so think of a hole, like something in the ground, okay? And that's the way you can remember that. So now we know what real music looks like. We know what rests look like. We understand from the previous explanation how these things kind of function, right? But let's look at this in context. So for example, in the last video we talked about the shaded parts as being the notes in our weird notation system here, right? So this would be 4 quarter notes. And here we talked about the shaded note here, but then the blank space is a rest, right? So how we would actually notate this would be so, like this. We would notate this blank space as a rest, and then we would notate the shaded space as a note right here, okay? Instead of like I wrote here, just to explain the subdivision, okay? So the blank space is an 8th rest, and the shaded space is an 8th note. Because we've subdivided the measure, our chunk of space, into 8 pieces. And in the next example, we have 16th notes here, right? But actually, only this beat is shaded in, so every other blank space would be a rest. Let's put this right here so we can see. This would be a note, and all of these would be rests. And in music, we wouldn't write these rests like this because it's very repetitive, so we would actually combine them. We would like squish them together. And we would make this an 8th note rest, 8th rest, and keep this as a 16th rest. For now, don't worry about that. So, now that we're done with this shaded stuff, here are some examples of rhythms that we can try. The first line here uses 8th notes and quarter notes and incorporates quarter note and 8th note rests with the half rest at the end. The next line uses 16th notes, some 8th notes and quarter notes, and those rests. The third line is based on triplets and has a few quarter notes and has a few 8th notes to practice and the corresponding rests. And the last line combines all of these note values, and it's a little bit of a challenge, okay? So, how do we read this? I would suggest what you do is you think about notes, like think about, let's take this measure because it's very easy. This is a quarter note, this is a quarter rest, quarter note, quarter rest, okay? Think about notes and rests as a green light, green means go, and a red light, red means stop, okay? So in your head, color code them, green, red, green, red. When it's green, you play, or you tap, or whatever you're doing. When it's red, you stop, okay? When it's green, you play, when it's red, you stop. That's essentially it. Then what you're gonna notice is we need to visually, I didn't write this in the best way possible because it's handwritten, so the spacing is a little off, but this is good practice for you because it's much easier to read written sheet music, right? Because it's like evenly spaced out. And here there aren't many rests, there aren't many tricky rhythms, so it's kind of simple. But if we take this measure, for example, we have triplets, quarter note, 8th note, quarter note, 8th rest, right? So if we play that, we have to visually divide and we have to think about the beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So 4 falls in the middle of this quarter note. We can't see 4 because this quarter note starts before 4, okay? So that's what I'm saying by visually subdivide. Like here, for example, you can visually see the beats. This is beat 1, beat 2, 3, 4. So you want to do that with every measure of music. You want to get into the habit of visually subdividing the beats so that it makes it easier to read. Because how you read music is you go off the rests, right? you have to read in beats. So for example, focus on this first. And what is that? That's one and. So one and, then the next beat. Two, right on the beat, next beat. Three and, next beat. Four and. Okay? That's how you read. I want you to visually divide things. So like this. Beat one, beat two is a rest. Beat three, beat four is a rest. Okay? So relate everything to each beat for now. One and, two and, three and, four and. Okay? This comes in handy when you get to places like this where it's a little bit complicated, right? So if you look at this measure, this is quite complicated. So 1, 2 E and, 3 and, 4 E and. Make sense? So I want you to visually divide those things and think about that idea of, if you see a note, it means green, it means go. If you see a rest, it means stop. And remember that time is continuous. So if you start clapping, for example, this rhythm, the time is going to keep going. You're not going to be able to catch up. So if you miss a few of these rhythms, you have to just find your place here, later here, and you have to catch up, okay? Now, the best thing you can do to learn things like this is to practice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap these rhythms out for you, okay? And you can pause and replay this video to tap along and practice them. But I recommend figuring them out on your own first and then following along with the video to double check if you've done it right. Because that's the way you're going to learn. Do it by yourself first and then use this as a reference to check. So the first line, we're going to do this line first. Let's see. I'm going to try to point with my finger to where we are, to which beat we're at, okay? So let's take it slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and go. 1 and 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, and 2 and 1, 2. Rest, rest. Okay. Next measure, or next line. This one's tricky. This one has 16th notes. So how are we counting? We're counting 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. Ah, I messed up. Okay. 4 E and 4 E and okay. So one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2 E, 3 E and 4 E and 1. 2 E and 3 E and 4. 1 and 2 E and 3, 4 E, 1 E and 2 E and 3 and 4. Okay, that one's tricky. Let's move on to the triplets. So triplet, 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 go. Triplet, 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 4. Triplet, triplet, 3 and. Triplet, 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 trip. 2, triplet, triplet. This one is tricky because we have this phrase, you can't really see it, it's written really poorly, the spacing. But this phrase is like this. Dot, got, dot, 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 dot. So, da, 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 da. So those are like quarter note triplets, right? Because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6 notes. So those are quarter note triplets. They're written as triplets, like this rhythm, to practice reading. But they could also be written as quarter note triplets, which would be like so. It would be this. 6 quarter notes in one measure, and they would look like this. Okay? These are quarter note triplets, and this is another way to write quarter note triplets. I wanted to, because like we're just tapping, right? So the duration doesn't matter. So we can have this eighth note and then a rest, and then a eighth note rest, right? But here, actually, if you're playing an instrument, or not tapping, basically, you can differentiate with the duration of the notes, right? You can really make these quarter notes instead of just eighth notes. But these two measures are actually the same. So those are the triplets. A little bit hard, so you can work on that. And then the last line here combines everything together. And it's a little bit tricky. So let's go slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 E and triplet 4. 1 E and dot and triplet 4. 1, 2 E and 3 and 4 E and triplet, triplet, triplet 4. Okay. I hope my counting and the way that I count, and you can hear that I count very rhythmically, right? I don't drag my syllables out or anything like that. I count so that it helps me keep time and stay in time and do all those things. If you were confused at any point here, I would suggest going back to the previous video, part 1. And that's it for today. If you have questions, let me know in the comments. From here, I would suggest that you just find music and then you practice it. But if you have any specific questions about notation or something that you've noticed that you don't know what it is, let me know and I'll try to answer your questions. So that's it. Go practice and see you next time.